I don't care what framework you use or what manifesto or what process you use, just as long as it works for the customer and you're pushing out the product to the customer with the outcomes that they're expecting and enabling that experience.
So one of the conversations I've been having a lot with leadership lately is around turning your people that you're working, the teams, the agile coaches, your scrum masters, really thinking about them as a capital expense. They're bringing value to your product. They are part of the value chain. They're not an operational expense. They're a capital expense.
When you look at the hand, right, you got a thumb, you got an index finger, and so on, right? They're not identical. They're different sizes, different shapes, things like that. However, when you kind of bring the hand together, it's powerful together.
When I think of reimagining, I get torn with reimagining Agile because I remember what it was like in the beginning, and I know I sound like a dinosaur, but in the beginning, it was very simply at work. It was about customer, it was about team, it was about getting things done and doing it well.
So the messaging that's out there is telling corporations, organizations that you need a framework solution or you need an accelerator, you need these things. And they look kind of cross-eyed when you go in and say, well, let's talk just values and principles to start with. Let's look at your HR. Let's look at your marketing. Well, we don't do the software stuff that we needed in IT.
Cool. So let's get started then. We can have lots of great conversation. So I think I wanted to introduce myself, but I think everybody knows me here. So I'll be your host for today. And I want to thank you for joining our very first community coffee hour or cocktail hour. And I think everybody's got one now. And yeah, I want to, thank you for sharing your time with us, because it's important that we all learn I would say kind of like the power of unity and collaboration. And that's what this is all about today. And to see how we can solve some of the challenges that face us in the community. Looks like some people are just joining us. So thank you very much. My name is Carol McEwen, and I'm your host for today. I'm also joined by our small but very mighty team, and I'd like them to introduce themselves. So Nelson, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nelson. I'm founder of Simply Agile community. Looking at some of the needs of the community, we felt like we need a place where we can belong. There's a lot of different places for us to hang out, but we just kind of started down the journey a couple of years ago, and all my team members have kind of come along with me. But I'm super excited for the conversation we're going to have today and uncover some of the needs. And who knows, we might be able to help each other, but definitely want to have this conversation, right? That's why Carol kind of put this event together. So super excited for the conversation, and let me turn it over to Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Nelson. Hey, everyone. I'm Graham, the Director of Product Design and Marketing at Simply Agile, and I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'll also be kind of doing the technical stuff today. So yeah, welcome, and so glad you're here.
So if you have any questions, ask Graham, not me, because I'm not the techie.
My name is Tolu. I'm glad to be here, part of today's program. So the digital creator, I assist Graham in what he does in marketing. Great to be here and having everyone here.
Thanks, Tolu. And I'll just introduce Victor very quickly. He is also a digital creator, and yeah, I'm sure he'll be joining us shortly. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to just go through the agenda really quickly. Introductions. We have created a Carol's Community Coffee group on Simply Agile. So if you would like to post a comment in that group or post a comment in the chat this meeting, just to share where you're from or something that maybe somebody doesn't know about you that you're willing to share, that would be awesome. And then when we're finished here, we'll have an opportunity to also introduce ourselves through our community conversations. So a little bit of housekeeping also, let's do that. This event is being recorded so we can share it with the community. We will be using the Jamboard for collaboration. And as Graham mentioned, it is in the chat as well as in the community coffee group on Simply Agile. So if you would like to jump in there, if you haven't accessed Jamboard before, maybe jump in there. We'll give you a minute here to get connected, because we'll be using it a couple of times today. And while you're doing that, I'll just share that this is an open meeting and you guys have control of your microphone. So please be respectful of others and please mute yourself when you're not speaking. And since this is our first community coffee, who knows where this might go, but we will share the conversations and be happy with wherever it takes us. And hopefully we'll get us prepared for moving forward together as the months go on. We hope to have one of these the first Wednesday of every month at this time. So yeah, so it's going to let's see where we go today. I'll give a short presentation on what I believe is the power of community and collaboration, and with some examples about where I believe there's been a major impact in the world with unique forms of community and collaboration. Some of you might not think they're so unique, but I do. And then I'll share my poem with you that I mentioned in the meeting invite, that really I believe is about the essence of Simply Agile and how together we can all be stronger and be a force for change. And then we'll build the lean coffee topics, and then we'll wrap it up from there. So does that sound okay with everyone? Perfect. Okay. I'm going to get started here. And this is all about Agile's true potential and a call for unity and collaboration. So before we get too far into this, has everybody got access to the Jamboard? Yeah. I'm seeing yeses. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. And the first one, I'd like to ask you to close your eyes. Think of the first word that pops into your mind when I ask you this question. What inspires you to be a part of the Agile community? And when you think of that one word, can you put it into the Jamboard under question 1 in your answer? People and community, the people, collaboration, getting there, the people, learning, sharing of awesome and not so awesome experiences. Awesome. Share from each other. Very nice. Be part of big things. So that's cool. Cool. Solving problems. Nice. Relationship and connection. Great. I'm sure there'll be a couple more in there before we end. But now I have another question for you. So close your eyes one more time. And I'm going to ask you this question. What is the biggest challenge you think is facing the Agile community today? Okay, open your eyes and now put your answer into the other part of the Jamboard that is set up for that reason. Lack of cohesion and discord. Yes. Relevance of the professions associated with Agile. Crisis of Agile coaching. Fragmentation. Process over people. Fragmentation. Loss of confidence from executives. We weren't delivering value. Cookie cutter solutions from consulting firms. Wow. Leading with just prescribed ways of working, not meeting organizations. And yes, the humans where they are, leading with change first. Wow. So interesting. So the reason that people are coming together and part of the community is because they want to learn from each other. They want this sense of community, all very similar things. And yet there's so many challenges facing us today. So I'm going to, hopefully people will keep, adding to that if they feel like they'd like to add additional things, but we'll get back to this in a minute. And right now I'd like to go through and kind of give you my thought process here on unity and collaboration and these examples that I talked to you about, and then we'll start our conversations. So in 1985, a remarkable event took place that showcased the transformative power of unity and collaboration. Does anybody know what that might have been? And those who already know cannot answer, please. 1985. No guesses? Open your mic.
Sing the song, the 1985 song. No, we can't, Carol.
What song are you thinking of?
1985.
We are the world. We are the world.
We are the world. It is actually We Are the World. In 1985, Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie wrote We Are the World. And 45 renowned musicians from around the world, from all different musical backgrounds, came together to record it. The purpose was to draw attention to the humanitarian crisis, and the song symbolized global unity and addressed the famine crisis in Africa. And to me, that showcased collaboration, and it ignited a movement, and it had a profound impact on the world, right? Like everybody knows this song and everybody knows they raised millions and millions of dollars for it. So in 2001, another remarkable event took place that showcased the transformative power of unity and collaboration. And I will give you a hint, it wasn't the aftermath of 9/11. So does anyone want to hazard a guess what I'm talking about here? 2001.
Agile Manifesto.
You got it on L.
Oh,
So in 2001, 17 software developers from very different backgrounds gathered to find a better way to build software. And over those 2 days, fueled by conversation and collaboration, the Manifesto for Agile Software Development was born. Now, it's interesting because everybody calls it the Agile Manifesto, right? But it actually was, and always has been called, the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. And it was a shared vision for a more collaborative, adaptable, and ultimately successful approach to software development that outlined 12 principles and 4 core values. And we all know those, so I don't have to go through those. But just like We Are the World showcased collaboration, ignited a movement, and had a profound impact on the world, do you agree that also the unity that came together with the creation of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development also did that? It created a profound impact. And the purpose was to find a better way to build software, do it, and to teach others how to do it. It ignited a global movement. It's transcended software development, right? Influencing industries from marketing and education and healthcare and government, right? But the impact has been profound, improving business outcomes, contributing significantly to the global economy. I'm sure everybody on this call would say, thank goodness for that. In many ways, it's been so positive. So maybe, just maybe, in their attempt to find a better way for developing software development, developing software, doing it and teaching others to do it, they were actually drawing attention to the importance of creating more human-centric workplaces, fostering a culture of collaboration, adaptability, and continuous improvement. And yet, despite the widespread adoption of Agile, we face so many challenges. You just shared many of them with us. And I'm sure you've all heard that Agile is dead, right? Well, I believe it's alive and capable of driving positive change. If we are ready to adapt, if we are ready to innovate, and if we are ready to unify and collaborate. And by we, I mean you and me, right? It's not just one group of people. It's not just, 17 people anymore. It's a lot more than that because the issues are bigger. The challenges are bigger, right? So are we ready to adapt? It seems to me that there's been so much emphasis on the practices, we've forgotten about the values. So maybe, and I'll mention this in a minute, maybe we should think about adding something somewhere that says one of our values is values over practice. And are we ready to innovate? Since 2001, the Manifesto for Agile Software Development has read to find a better way to develop software. And I was just at Agile 2024, and I'm sure many of you were. And during the Reimagine Agile keynote panel, I heard one of the signatories say they wrote the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. And I can imagine that there will be more manifestos. In fact, I know of the Agile Marketing Manifesto and the Agile HR Manifesto. And I'm sure there are more. So what if there was the Manifesto for Agile Organizations? And what if it read to draw attention to the importance of creating a more human-centric workplace, fostering a culture of collaboration, adaptability, and continuous improvement? I would advocate for values over practices as one of those values in that manifesto, because the software development one is for software development, and that's not going to change. And are we ready to unite and collaborate? There's an ancient African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. I want to go far. Do you? What if Agile is united in a community of communities? What if we embraced our shared values and at the same time could find a community that you could embrace your differences. For example, I'm all in on agility and really passionate about being part of changing the face of education. And you might be all in on agility, but really passionate about, say, sustainability and saving our planet. How do we find those people that we want to work together with to help solve those even bigger challenges? And would it be nice to find others to do that with? I think that together we can create a more human-centric workplace that fosters a culture of collaboration and adaptability and continuous improvement, and help others do the same. Do you? Let's unite in our purpose and transform the future together. So just as we are the world musicians and the signatories of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development demonstrated the power of unity and collaboration, the Agile community can drive significant change. By embracing our shared values and uniting in a community of communities, we can create a more adaptive, innovative, and collaborative world. And as I promised, I wrote a short poem that I'd like to share with you that it is from the heart. Some people say it's a little sappy, sorry. But I hope that it expresses to you the passion that we all have here, Simply Agile, for our purpose. Simply Agile was made for you and for me to communicate, collaborate, and unite in community. Our mission is simple. Our vision is clear. Agilists unite without any fear. With passion and with purpose, we're building a place for Agilists to grow with courage and with grace. In this collaborative space, we share and we learn, supporting each other at every turn. A network of change makers connected and strong and Simply Agile, together we belong. Diverse and inclusive, a community so grand, dynamic and supportive, together we stand. For people and for progress, I think it's safe to say it's about the values and the lessons we learn along the way. And while we value Agile practices, we value values more. So let's set aside our differences and get back to what is core. For in unity and purpose, our efforts will not fail. Together, we are stronger and Agile will prevail. Simply Agile is a place. Don't miss this opportunity. Join us on this journey and unite in community. Thank you. I hope this has given you some inspiration and understanding of what Simply Agile is all about and how together we can, like We Are the World and the people, the signatories of the Agile Manifesto, have demonstrated that coming together, we can do really great things. At the beginning, I asked you what inspires you to be part of the Agile community, and I really wasn't surprised to see so many things in common. And when I asked you what you think is the biggest challenge facing us in the Agile community today, there were so many. Would anyone like to share a bit more detail about the challenges they shared? I'd love to hear from you. Well, and you people on this call are not shy, so I know most of you.
Okay, I'll jump in. So I think one of the things that we see is, like I said in my comment, and I stand by it, I think that we're just too busy trying to follow all the prescribed ways of working. We're not meeting organizations where they are. And our experiences by far, whether collective or individual, far exceed any ways of working that we've seen on a piece of paper. And, you know, I work for Scale Agile. I follow a framework, but I also have common sense to know that where an organization is struggling and sees that they don't need to scale things up, that we can keep it very foundational. As a mentor, as a coach, as a strategic advisor, I'm like, you don't need to do all that. Just hone in and focus on this. Let's make this really well. Let's make it go, the best that we can with quality in mind, with value delivery. And then we can go to the next thing. And then we can go to the next thing. So I'm constantly being cognizant of where every organization is different. Just like when you have kids, every child in your household is different. You don't treat them all alike. It's the same thing when you're engaging and working with humans. It's the human component aspect of it that gets in the way of the agility thing. So bringing those things together, the human aspect and the agile aspect, and bringing your experiences in the middle to meet that, right? So that's what I stand on. And I don't look at brands. I don't look at different things. I really look about what are we trying to achieve here from a customer perspective, and how can we help them to deliver that value that is essential for them to succeed in the market, with the employee and the customer experience always being in the center of everything that we do.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Oh, David Luke has raised his hand.
Hey, y'all. We actually kicked off the Reimagining Agile Committee last night. And one of the things that I heard is one of the reasons that Agile is not succeeding as much as it should is all the different brands, whether it be Scaled Agile or Less or Scrum.org or everything, all the interfighting. And, some people saying, hey, that framework sucks, use mine, or mine's better than this or that. And it needs to operate as one. Hey, we're using agility to help add value to customers, to give executives a sense of delivery and outcomes. And we need to all kind of work together it doesn't matter what flavor you use. This one may suit you better. You may take a little bit from this framework and a little bit from this things, but all together they need to be, hey, this is the base of agility and this is how things need to operate. And I see that a lot. I have a pretty good view from the Agile Alliance, just the different areas and the different brands that we see. And I see a little bit of that. I don't care what framework you use or what manifesto or what process you use, just as long as it works for the customer and you're pushing out the product to the customer with the outcomes that they're expecting and enabling that experience.
Thanks, David. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that anybody else want to share?
I'm going to yes and to David's comment because my sticky was about the cookie cutter solutions, and having just left a consulting firm was one of the biggest things that I argued with them all the time, is going into a client and saying, we have accelerators, we've got spreadsheets, we've got whatever, we're going to make this work for you. And when I posed the question, why aren't we starting with values and principles first and looking at their situation? The messaging back was, they're looking for a framework solution because they've been sold by that's what the marketing jargon is telling them they need to look for. So the messaging that's out there is telling corporations, organizations that you need a framework solution or you need an accelerator, you need these things. And they look kind of cross-eyed when you go in and say, well, let's talk just values and principles to start with. Let's look at your HR. Let's look at your marketing. Well, we don't do the software stuff that we needed in IT. That's the challenge, is that they've been conditioned to believe they need these things, these frameworks and solutions, instead of starting with bottom line values and principles. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. Oh, Leslie?
I think we'd be remiss not to comment on one of the things that may have gotten us here, which is a little bit parallel to some of what we're saying. And Ro, you touched on it briefly with the human-centered approach. There was and has been an over-occupation of a professional coaching stance, which has become almost so human-centered in people that call themselves agile coaches, really acting like life coaches, and thus not actually focusing on real outcomes and deliverables, which has sort of been the underthread of the flavors and frameworks part. Who cares about that? We're really here to help you maximize value delivery, right? Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. So I that pendulum, I see it starting to swing back towards more pragmatic sort of stuff. So I think that's worth naming as a contributing factor to everything.
Yes, I totally agree with you too. I love all this amazing conversation. And as David mentioned, there's these things kicking off. We see these challenges, right? There's the reimagining Agile that's going on. There's pockets all over the place of people trying to solve problems, but how are we coming together to solve those problems also, right? What's David saying? They don't care. They want to get product to the market. They do, but what got us in this place, you got to kind of look at what got us in this situation to begin with, right? And I often think of the story about Jeff Sutherland when he went into the World Bank and he said, give me your worst performing team, right? And let's start there. What little thing can we fix first? So I guess my question is, if there were things that you wanted to be a part of how to fix, or where would you start? Or what group would you want to be belonging to, right? And I think that's what we're hoping to do with with Simply Agile, and maybe it's simply little agile and big agile, right? It's about being agile. It's about how can we help organizations get to that end game that they're looking for, but with a really great set of coaches who are willing to be humble enough to change, right? Like maybe if we step back a little bit, do we say, did we give people with this education a little bit too much confidence to go out and make money without being able to deliver the value? Nelson?
Yes, thank you, Carol. And I'm loving the conversation you have here, listening to different thoughts, and we have team members from different perspectives, right, coming through. The example that comes to me, and I've shared this with my team as well, is like when you look at the hand, right, you got a thumb, you got an index finger, and so on, right? They're not identical. They're different sizes, different shapes, things like that. However, when you kind of bring the hand together, it's powerful together, right? And that's essentially what we're trying to do with Simply Agile, is trying to unite all thoughts, all different flavors, so we're agnostic to, it doesn't really matter what framework, what flavor of Agile that we look at. However, each of us has different strengths and skills that we come together, and also the companies that kind of come along with it, right? So what we're trying to do is create an environment where, first of all, it's safe to talk about it. It's free, open conversation that we're talking through this. And then as we are talking through this, we understand that, okay, these are some of the challenges that we're going through, because it's way bigger than me and way bigger than my team. We're bigger, like all of us kind of coming together. There's about 10 people on the call right now. But as we come together, we just have to be aware that this is a space where we can talk about these things and also make a difference by coming together. So that's kind of what I'm excited about, is that, yeah, this is the first step, just uncovering it. And then let's see what we can do together, because the power of communities, when people come together, like the examples Carol shared, it's so powerful when people come together. I'm excited for this conversation. Please dive in and kind of let's talk through some of this stuff here.
I resonated with, I think, what Leslie said. I think I eat, sleep, and drink Agile coaching nowadays. So, and I've done that for a few years. And not Agile coaching as a practice, but also as the profession. And I've seen what's evolved, and I think it's in the training as well. So in Agile coaching, if you lean into professional coaching, you're asking lots of powerful questions, but where's the experience? Where's the beef? Where's the product? Where's the value proposition? So it's not just asking questions. And I think the same thing on the certification side of just teaching people 2-day classes and things like that. We're turning people into product owners and scrum masters who've never built software. And there's nothing wrong with that, but how are we giving them, how are we augmenting that experience and giving them that deep experience? When I think of a reimagining, I get torn with reimagining Agile, because I remember what it was like in the beginning, and I know I sound like a dinosaur, but in the beginning, it was very simply, it worked. It was about customer, it was about team, it was about getting things done and doing it well. It wasn't about necessarily frameworks. I mean, no one argued a little bit, Scrum, etc., XP, but it was, and we honored developers. We honored creators. The buck stopped with the creators. And now I think the buck stops with Agile coaches. I'm one. Or the buck stops with Scrum Masters, or the buck stops with other roles or accountabilities. But it's like, get back to basics about the customer, about delivering value, about getting things done, not arguing, but community, etc. So those are just some thoughts that are running through my head.
Thank you. Anybody else have some thoughts? David, Luke?
I do think that Agile doesn't just sit in the software realm. And that's one of the mistakes I think we've made early on. I think it was a mistake in the Agile Manifesto as it started talking about software development, because agility and Agile can be used in so many different areas. And those are places that we have ignored. You can use it in HR. You can use it in marketing. I use it all the time in legal. And, you can't iteratively do legal things, but you can also use Kanban. You can prioritize, and you can limit your WIP to get outcomes and things like that. And that's one of the things that I'm also focusing on reimagining Agile, is where else can we take Agile? It doesn't need to be just software. It can be other things. It can be in strategy. It can be in planning. It can be in HR. And I think to limit it strictly to software and keep that in the title is a mistake that we can't make. We have to get the larger community involved in Agile. And that way it shows more value to everyone, starting with executives and ending with customers.
A real quick twist, David, is like the language I heard was we take Agile to these places. And so we're going to, I'm going to get this wrong and badly, but we're going to take Agile from software to here. I'd almost want to reframe it and say we can inspire them to become Agile in HR. And so they have
Agreed.
deep. So instead of us, I don't have a clue about HR. So I shouldn't be coaching them, or I shouldn't be training. Maybe I can help a little bit. But what if we inspire them to become students of agility, and we cooperate with them, or in HR, in accounting? I did this once with the CFO, and the Agile emerged from the CFO and from the financial organization. So that's the only twist I'm saying. Instead of sort of deigning it on top of them or migrating it out, what if we inspire these folks who have that deep experience and get ourselves back to our deep software experience, or whatever it is, so domain experience. So we need deep domain experience, and then Agile can spring from that.
I don't agree. I don't think you have to know HR to help them become Agile. I think you need to talk to them and say, what are the problems you're having to do this? And you'll see common problems with the application of Agile methods to help them solve that. I mean, yes, of course, there's some legal stuff and there's some HR specific stuff that is going to be inherent to each of those domains. But at the end of the day, I think a coach can go into kind of any type of function and help work with the teams, at least at a high level, to say, what are your problems? What are you running into? What are your blockers? And how about trying this or different things like that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of different ideas on that. I'm one of those people that think that I don't need to be domain specific either, but I think other people that I think I look at, it started with Agile software development. So I don't think, I wouldn't consider it was wrong, but I consider it as we had to start somewhere. That's where it started. But everybody's trying to develop this thing out of that instead of saying, hey, let's add to it now. We've got the manifesto for Agile software development over here. Now we know that we want to take that beyond software. We can take that beyond software. Let's be honest, SAFe takes it way beyond software. I used to work there too. And, so does, well, I don't think Less does, but I know Scrum at Scale does. But if you want to be within the software development, that's great. But then you can also, other people can find how they can use their skills. But I think also there's this little thing that's been triggering with me is that we used to always talk about the team, right? Well, you know what? Leadership has teams, right? They are a team, but we never think of them as a team when we talk about Agile, right? And I remember so succinctly how it's like, what Dean used to say when he had people that wanted him to come in and do training, right? And he'd say, okay, I'll send my team. And he goes, if you can't come, send no one, because, it's not about leadership participating buying in and supporting the teams. It's about leadership participation and engagement, right? And so I think these things are all kind of nuances, I know, but there's so much broken because we haven't had these conversations from different organizations. And I think that I'm so excited about the conversation that's happening here. And we only have about, 10, 13 minutes left. And one thing I'd like to ask is what from this conversation has inspired you to want to be part of more of this and beyond? And is there something, we've got all the conversations that we've had, we've got the starting point of a lot of challenges that we face, what do we do with this? What do we do for the next meeting so that I will inspire you to come back and continue these conversations? Can I ask you to join the Carroll's Community Coffee Group on Simply Agile so that we don't have to wait until next time to pick it up again? Let's continue the conversation, and let's invite other people to continue the conversation throughout the month so that we've got some real meat to talk about. And maybe we talk and tackle one issue and come out with a couple of ideas for action. Is that something that would excite people? Or I'm open to ideas for what to do with this information. How do we solve some of this? And, also moving it forward. And even there's also the Reimagine Agile group on Simply Agile as well. Maybe you'd be inspired to join that group and start some conversations there. So where do we go from here? There's some chats going on that I haven't seen. I agree with you, Bob. I'm just reading your message about let's not make it about Agile. It's about great HR and product development, et cetera. Meeting folks where they are and delivering customer value.
Yeah. Carol, I think someone earlier talked about value, and that kind of touched on quite a few times in the comments and things. Does somebody want to verbalize that? Because when we talk about value, each, depending on the lens, is maybe different. Right? But does anybody want to share their thoughts around that?
Real quickly, I mean, for me, I've been sharing a talk about how do coaches show their value, demonstrate their value, confirm their value. And it's a reaction to a lot of the layoffs. And I've been talking about this for a few years. And so I think value, I talk about equivalency of organizational leaders see Agilists as directly equivalent to developers or directly equivalent to consumers is one way. So or not consumers, producers. So let's say developers produce value, right? They demonstrably project managers, Agilists, I don't know. What do they really do besides instantiate Scrum? So to me, value is crossing that chasm. How do we get Agilists and our impact organizationally at a team level and an organizational level to be viewed by leaders as, oh my gosh, that has a bottom line impact to the customer. Look, that's a direct impact. It's a direct line to that. And I think that happens in some organizations, but fairly rarely.
I like that. And so kind of funny. So maybe you guys, you're kind of crossing my path as well too. So my background is Lean Six Sigma. That's how I started my journey around Agile. Back at IBM, we did a lot of optimization, a lot of global outsourcing, and it was a great work. And we did operational excellence like you wouldn't believe it. We squeezed the penny out of a penny out of a penny. But the challenge is that then nobody was talking any longer. So the people that actually were doing the work that were delivering value no longer could deliver value because we had fragmented the teams so awfully that we couldn't really deliver that awesome value with quality in mind and all those wonderful things that we talk about from an Agile perspective. So one of the conversations I've been having a lot with leadership lately is around turning your people that you're working, the teams, the Agile coaches, your Scrum Masters, really thinking about them as a capital expense. They're bringing value to your product. They are part of the value chain. They're not an operational expense. They're a capital expense. And when you lose sight of that, that's where you lose your true agility in your organization. Call it what you call it. So I've been talking a lot about that, kind of stepping out of my sweaty armpit mode of Lean Six Sigma back in the day and thinking about much more holistically of what is the value they want to deliver with the capital and the operational expense, and shifting the mindset around that we're just a bunch of op resources that you can they can come like the wind, come in and out, and you're going to deliver value, and you're just not going to do that, right? The reason why you're delivering an awesome product is because you're iterating and you're building product over product, and over time you're building that product that you want to achieve. Hopefully the closest thing to the perfect product for your perfect customer that delivers the perfect value, right? And there's no such thing as perfection, but you know where I'm getting at with that. But it's the whole concept of really thinking about that. And the reason how you build really good teams is the same thing, is you're constantly iterating on building those teams out. And when you leave, that's the reason I leave IBM for 21 years, because I was working for one of those teams that were magical. And I didn't necessarily agree with the purpose of the organization, where they were going, but my team was awesome. And we delivered value. And we were a capital expense. We were not an operating expense. But I felt that this give back community that we're talking about today was essential for me to continue my journey. around my purpose, right? So I think that that's where, from a leadership perspective, that's what I'm trying to think is how do we adapt to the new ways of working and being thoughtful around shifting the mindset around that, we're an operational expense. No, we're a capital expense because we bring value alongside that product and connecting those dots, Bob, like you were saying, so pragmatically in words that mean a lot to leaders. Because when you talk about money, you talk about return on investment, and you talk about value delivery to your customers, you got the ears open. And that's what we should be coaching as Agile coaches, right? And as Scrum Masters and as team coaches and as RTEs, whatever you want to call these people that are awesome people.
Totally agree. I also think that we've become siloed in our thinking around not just like our teams don't become, well, our teams are siloed and continue to be typically, but also in our practices, right? I just tried to write this article that I'm not quite done with, but it's about talking about business agility, and you can't achieve business agility with just lean or just agile or just Obeya. But when you take business agility, I call it the business agility success equation. Business agility equals Obeya plus lean plus agile. And if you take all those things and all the awesomeness that is in all of those things together, we can create the value that our organizations are looking for, right? But there's no way to do it with just one thing, right? And that's what people have been trying to do. Oh, I must use just safe, or I must use just this, or I must use... Remember when people used to get mad at you when you said you used Scrumban, right? Like that was a dirty word when I was a kid, but it's not now, right? So we have evolved through this, but how do we move forward? There's so many different groups trying to do the right thing, but there's also the groups. I was surprised not to see something on the challenges of people finding jobs. I was surprised not to see that on here, right? Because I think a lot of Agilists are really struggling right now too, right? And why are they struggling? Because we didn't show the value, the perception of no value to the execs. Perception is reality, guys. Because there is perception of no value, then how, and like Bob was saying, how do we create that perception of value? And how do we teach those people that, you have to know the value that you deliver, because nobody's going to hire you if you don't.
Maybe there's an effort of value focus, but also what I think of is the language we use. I call it Agile gobbledygook nowadays. I don't think the Agile gobbledygook does us a good service, and it's almost like have to get it out of our language. So how do we communicate business impact without using any Agile gobbledygook? Maybe we use it. We can have it in our head. Maybe we can talk to our coaching colleagues about it. But when we're talking organizationally, clean our language, and have a value focus, and figure out how do we connect the dots.
I love that about clean our language, because every organization uses a different term. Everyone, right? I'll use, bro. I hope you don't mind me using this, but right, but. Or Anel, you've had your hand up. I'm sorry. I didn't. I just recognized that you did. I'm going to say this and then I'll hand it over to you. Is like Obeya, right? It's such a big thing today, but there's certain people that refuse to call it Obeya. But if we could all figure out what the right term is that everybody is willing to use, so that we're all talking the same language, instead we have to go, it's like speaking a different dialect in China. Right? Or in India, there's 20,000 different dialects in one little kind of location. And that makes it difficult to communicate. Well, maybe we could create one. So, Anel, sorry.
I had put a sticky, because I'm very disciplined in the challenges, and you partly addressed it. I think I had put what we could do is finding new ways of collaborating and sharing to restore the core values. To restore may not be the right word, but to include them, and you said combining all these methodologies and frameworks without hesitating, without thinking about it, and that's probably one of the solutions. So I just took upon myself to describe what you said.
Thank you.
But there was much more. Everybody said much more, but that could be a topic to to explore more in depth.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We didn't get to dot voting or any of that kind of stuff because I said this was about seeing where this conversation went today. And I don't know about you guys, but I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I think there's so much work to be done. I wonder if maybe because we have literally 1 minute left to manage the time box appropriately, I can stay no, I can't have another meeting. Sorry. But for next time, maybe we do that. Would anybody be opposed to the fact that we take that one topic and really have some honest, open conversation around that? But if you think about anything in between, please use the Carroll's Community Coffee group and put your thoughts and ideas in there so that we are always thinking about what's coming up next, so that when we do get together and have face-to-face conversation, or I can't say real, but live conversation, that we can actually maybe come up with some ideas to share with more people. If you loved this conversation, I ask you to invite others to the meeting. Thank you very much, Bob. I love the 2 thumbs up. And thank you to everybody who's posting their emojis up here. And I look forward to the next meeting. If anybody has anything else before we leave, we are 10 o'clock on the dot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.